Welcome to Observations. We're here with the normal cast of characters with Kirk and Scott. Hey, fellas, I read in the news yesterday that the United States Air Force, this is the Air Force that committed something in the range of $400 billion to create the ultimate camel, which is the F-35, the Joint Strike Fighter that one aircraft can serve all of the U.S. military branches, and in fact, it doesn't work for anyone. That aircraft that doesn't have a foe to target and isn't even remotely combat ready, and has become the biggest boondoggle probably in military history. And that's saying something, considering how much money we spent for the B-2, and I guess we have about a dozen of them. But they just announced they're spending $12 billion to remake the F-15. Now, why would you need to remake the F-15 if you weren't concerned that the F-35 was a complete boondoggle and fiasco, and that your pilots will have nothing to fly, and therefore, if they have nothing to fly, you won't need an Air Force?
That's right.
And then you won't have all the money that we
That's right. What in the world? And of course, this is after the U.S. Army announced that they misappropriated $6 trillion.
Man, I wish they misappropriated that money.
God, it's too bad that the Kaepernicker isn't taking a knee on behalf of the wasteful spending of the U.S. military. And everybody's having a conniption fit that he won't stand for the national anthem because it shows no respect to the sacrifice made by the men and women in uniform who have kept us free. And you just go, oh, my God. Gag me. I mean, this is a institution, the U.S. military, that rapes women and doesn't hold the men accountable, that squanders the national treasury, that has been used consistently to make bad situations worse, and is the least free in the country. And, well, now they're admitting that their new technology doesn't work. So why not spend another $12 billion? Hey, there's another thing that struck me in the news. Mother Teresa.
Yeah.
She is now a saint. She is the only saint, and the Roman Catholic Church has got 10,000 saints, so who in the hell knows? But she may be the only saint upon whom an exorcism was performed. Did you know that?
I did not know that.
Mother Teresa.
I heard that, but I didn't know that before.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. She's the only saint upon whom, I'm saying not who performed an exorcism, upon whom an exorcism was performed.
Performed on.
Yeah.
Who did they exorcise?
All of the
good, right?
Yeah, well, the truth about Mother Teresa is that she was a BI. You can finish the word with a capital B. She was absolutely a horrible person. She routinely criticized the Roman Catholic Church, saying, I don't believe any of this stuff, and saw to it that those under her care were kept under her care by maintaining their poverty. But the Roman Catholic Church, their standard is that somebody who is holy. I was translating a passage in Yahowah, Isaiah 53, because it's the passage that explains how the test that Abraham performed and met would be fulfilled by Yahowah on Mount Moriah. So it was dealing with Yahowah 53. And one of the words that it's used twice is holy. I didn't know there was a Hebrew word holy. I hadn't been paying attention. You know what holy means in Hebrew?
If they're trying to say set apart.
No. That's Kodesh. That's what Kodesh is. Kodesh is set apart. No, there's actually a Hebrew word, holy.
Oh, yeah?
Uh-huh.
I must
have. Yeah, it's not a Hebrew word that means holy.
Oh, okay.
It's a Hebrew word that is pronounced holy. Holy.
Really?
Yeah. It means perverse, perverted, twisted, diseased, profane. That's what it means.
Oh.
It is it's a word that is used in conjunction with Shoah, which is deceitful, corrupt, It's used in connection with awon, which is perverted and twisted, untrue, wrong. It's used in conjunction with ra, so it's blended in the midst of these things, and it's so there really is a Hebrew word holy, and come to find out, it means perverse, profane, disgusting, infected, diseased, wounded, and wrong.
It's the most accurate use of the word yet.
It is indeed. So I can most assuredly say that Yahowah does not have a Holy Spirit.
No.
And that the Holy Ghost of Roman Catholicism is the same as the Lord of Roman Catholicism. We are dealing with Satan. That's a lovely, it is a lovely world out there. You know, one of the things I did not previously mention, we did a show. I think it was a Shabbat show on Yada 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 Radio, where was undergo in Turkey was being undertaken during the show, and somebody said, you know, what do you think about this this coup in Turkey? They've what's going to be the outcome of it? And you know, immediately I said, listen, I haven't read anything on the coup, but I can tell you that if there's a coup taking place in Turkey, that it and if it's genuine, it has a zero chance to prevail, because Turks have become fundamentalists. There's the overwhelming preponderance of Turks now are like their leader and like their country. They have become a fundamentalist Islamic regime. And so there is no way for a secularist in the military to perpetrate a coup there. It's very much like Egypt. You know, there was the secular influence of the military in both Egypt and in Turkey, empowered secular dictators in those countries. Saddam Hussein was a secular dictator, empowered by the military. But in Turkey has been taken so far down the road of a fundamentalist Islamic state that my reaction was there's a 0% chance that a coup, if that is in fact what is occurring, would prevail. And it's so impossible for a coup to prevail there now, considering the preponderance of Turks that are fundamentalist Muslims. There is nobody in their right mind as a general that would even suggest one. Now, what that means is, since there is no general that would risk their career and their lives, their freedom, to try to create a coup to take Turkey away from the fundamentalist country it's become, where there is no secular freedom. Yeah, I said there's no chance that anybody would be that stupid in Turkey as a secularist. I said that begs the question, who's the actual perpetrator of the coup? And it became obvious immediately thereafter there was Erdogan perpetrating his own coup for the express purpose of rounding up tens of thousands of teachers, the rest of the media, all the rest of the bureaucrats and generals, so that he is a de facto dictator. And what is the first thing that Erdogan did once he cleaned house? He invaded Syria. Now, he said, I'm invading Syria to go after the Islamic State, and oh, by the way, also to get those dastardly Kurds off our border.
That's the biggie first.
And that was the only reason he did it. And so here's the United States arming and equipping and fighting with the Kurds in Syria.
Okay.
And we're arming and fighting with the Turks as part of NATO, and the Turks are fighting the Kurds.
Yeah, and giving both of them the guns to do it with.
we're arming both the Turks and the Kurds, and they're at war with each other.
Why don't we give them those airplanes, the Itzel airplane that we just built?
Yeah, why don't we give them the F-35? Oh, my goodness. I mean, we are in a world now that is just hard to imagine. There was a diagram that somebody sent me the other day of the various factions in the Syrian multiplicitous war. You can't even call it a civil war. There's nothing civil about it, but it's not like there are an indigenous group of people that decided to rise up against another indigenous group of people. The Syrian conflict has nothing to do with any of that. It's all a derivative of the United States invading Iraq and giving Iraq to Iran. and changing the balance of power, and then giving the Iranians in Iraq an army, which they used to start massacring Sunnis, and then the Sunnis in the Petraeus and Bush awakening program simply used the weapons that we were supplying them to defend themselves against the weapons that were being foisted at them that we had given to the Shias. And the Shias turned out to be hot air. And the Sunnis with marginal weapons, much less formidable weapons, routed the Shias that we had trained. So those we didn't train were much more effective fighters than those we had trained. And they were more effective with primitive weapons than the ones we had trained with sophisticated weapons, and they whooped them.
Yeah.
And they ended up with all.
The ones we trained didn't even keep their clothes. They
didn't keep their clothes, much less their weapons. And so the Islamic State gained all of them, and that was the birth of the Islamic State. So you got the Islamic State. You had al-Nusra, which was a product of Saudi Arabia and Qatar. For the express purpose of trying to undo what America had done, which had artificially elevate the influence of Shia Islam. And then you had Hezbollah, which was the militia of Iran, stationed both in Syria and in Lebanon, being used to support their puppet, which is Assad. And so you've got all of those factors. So you've got a Shiite and now two Sunni militias. And then you have the Kurds, who for the first time now actually have their own country. And they're all fighting each other. And then you've got Assad and his military. And then the Soviets, the Americans, not the Soviets, but the Russians, the Americans, all together in one big happy war. And I don't think anybody is on anybody's side. Of course, America though has the freedom. Has the Free Syrian Army. We've twice disbanded our multi-billion-dollar training program because each time that we've launched it, we were able to track one surviving soldier and no weapons. So. I don't know how a country could be anywhere. You can't make this stuff up. I mean, when you look at who's fighting whom and who's supporting whom in Syria, they had an interview 3 or 4 days ago. It was with Gary Johnson, who's the Libertarian candidate for president, and they asked him, say, well, what would you do about the Aleppo crisis? And he said, what's Aleppo? And now, if he had said, what's Aleppo and why is Aleppo of importance to me, and saying that, as a libertarian, we are not interested in fighting other people's wars, because literally in Aleppo, we've made everything worse. If he had said it that way, what's Aleppo? Why are you even asking about Aleppo? Aren't we talking about an American election? Don't we have things we need to fix in America? But he didn't. He didn't even know what Aleppo was. And he said, what's Aleppo? And the interviewer said, you're kidding, right? He says, no, I don't know what Aleppo is. And, it's the largest city. It was the largest city in Syria. It's now nothing but a heap of ruins. But it reminds me of what we have done collectively to Aleppo and Homs is utterly destroy them. It's like Fallujah in Iraq. It no longer exists. Mm-hmm. I don't know if you've seen pictures of it, but it's far worse than anything you'd ever witness in any of the cities in Germany or in Japan that we firebombed.
Yeah, well,
it's nothing but heaps of rubble.
Yeah. Is there anything left in Aleppo?
No, and so you'd say.
I mean, because they said the other day Syria had taken over Aleppo, and I was thinking, well, what was there left to take over? I mean, you just want to stick your flag on top of the rubble?
Nothing. And there's this myth that somehow the Islamic State needs to be defeated in Aleppo. And Aleppo was al-Nusra. and there's nothing to it. There's nothing left.
That's what I mean.
So I guess the solution to the problems in the Middle East is what I've said for a long time. I've said there's for years and years and years. Well, there's the the solution that we're pursuing, which is no solution at all, but I said, it will resolve the problem, but at a cost that's unimaginable, which is you just destroy, you kill everybody. You just kill everybody, you bomb them back into the Stone Age, and you destroy all forms of life, and you'll prevail that way. So if you want to use the military to turn the entire countries into rubble, the wasteland, then you will solve the inflighting, and they won't be exporting terrorists, and so all you have to do is kill everybody. I said,
but they might just decide to move somewhere else, which they will.
Well, which of course they have, millions of them.
Yeah.
But I said, since that's unacceptable and immoral to take that approach, the only approach that actually works is to quarantine. Mm-hmm. Don't invade. Don't stir up the hornet's nest. Don't bomb them, making them matter. Don't take them in as refugees. Ignore them. Stop sending them weapons. There is no Syrian war. There's no civil war in Iraq. There is no genocide of the Christians.
No.
If we're not supplying weapons. Stop supplying weapons. Stop buying their oil. Quarantine them. And the whole problem goes away. But there's nobody saying that. And it was so sad to see Gary Johnson with the what's Aleppo, and then no retort beyond that, no ability to say, well, I said, what's Aleppo, because we ought not be concerned about it.
Yeah. So the solution is to blow it all up and bring all the refugees to your house. I don't think Yahowah takes that approach.
No, he's set apart. By the way, speaking of holy, and that's what the Mother Teresa was supposed to be, and she's the perfect example of what it means to be holy in Hebrew. That a person is beautified if they have performed at least one miracle, and of course, there's not a single Roman Catholic that's ever performed a miracle. But that it's someone that a Roman Catholic can pray to, that can intercede with God,
right,
on another person's behalf. Now, I'm only aware of one person that Yahowah said serves to intercede on our behalf, and that is Yosha, who is actually a diminished manifestation of Yahowah.
Mm-hmm.
And he does say that Yosha intercedes on our behalf. He says it throughout the Isaiah 53, for example. But what do you think that the odds are that a person upon whom an exorcism was performed is in heaven, A, and B, is interceding on behalf of anyone? Yeah.
Don't happen.
Yeah, I've got a neighbor here that's got a little statue of Mary in the front yard, and and you wonder, what in the world are you all thinking? That how could you be that stupid? I drove to lunch with my wife, and 3 doors down there was a woman wearing a hijab that walked into one of the houses. Of course, it's Friday prayer, so they were all gathering for prayers in the house. And you say, you can't be that stupid, really. I mean, are you wearing this because if you don't wear it, your husband will beat the living crap out of you? Are you wearing this because you were born a Muslim and you were never thoughtful enough to ever examine the Quran and Hadith? You don't recognize that Muhammad was a pedophile and a rapist and a terrorist? Or do you know all of that? And you're so goddamn immoral that you want to convince other people to be as perverted as you are?
Well, yeah, obviously they're going to take their children to the same place. So, I mean, parents corrupt the children. I mean, they just, no matter how she answers it, that's what they do.
That is what they do. So, I tell you, it's been a rough week.
They create their horror.
It's been a rough week for the news. I read even today that Trump is being heralded as a bad boy because he criticized U.S. policy on Russian television. Now, it was criticizing U.S. policy in Iraq. My guess is that his position on Iraq is we should have stayed there with our military and continued to lose lives that way, and Iraq would have been better if we had continued with the surge, which is the opposite of what's true.
The end result being what?
But you think that the Russians aren't aware? Do you think there's anyone in the world that's not aware that American policy in Iraq was immoral, counterproductive, dishonest, deadly? I mean, do you think there's anyone outside of the realm of the patriotic and indoctrinated in America that aren't aware that everything America did in Iraq was disingenuous, deadly, deceitful, destructive, counterproductive? I mean, why would anyone in their right mind be concerned that Trump was criticizing America's policy in Iraq? How do you think the Russians don't know?
Yeah.
Are we the only country in the world that is unaware that everything we did in Iraq was counterproductive? We can't be that stupid, can we?
Well, I guess we just ignore it. Put our head in the sand, you know?
Actually, we are that stupid.
I think it's true. Yeah, I think it's true.
I talked to an old friend of mine. He's 80, but one of my closest friends, and since I came to California, gave me my first job out here and so forth. And he knows this. He can't understand why they removed all the dictators. We had a long conversation the other night about it, you know. And we started off talking about football, and they got to that. And he doesn't understand. Well, why did they do that? And I gave him my 2 cents. But gosh, the older generation seems to know. They just don't know what to do. And they certainly aren't going to turn to Yahowah.
No, it's you just realize we are as a people about as lost as you could possibly be. And yet the big issue in America, particularly in our educational circles, is inclusive restrooms.
Yeah.
You know, you need to have a new sign on the restrooms that has the sun ray on it, which is the symbol of man, the Tammuz sign with the plus sign, where the sun crosses the constellation of Taurus the Bull on the spring equinox, with the circle of the sun, and then over the left side, just have a question mark. You know, whatever.
I'm sorry. This is just too funny.
So we're having it's in Minnesota right now. Nearly a dozen Minnesota families are suing their school district for failing to take action after their daughters were exposed to a transgender male student allegedly twerking. Now I'm not sure I know what twerking is.
Some kind of dancing, I know that, but it's
twerking and engaging in other sexual behavior in a girl's locker room. Twerking, yep. I say
why can't they just let them go in the teacher's lounge?
You can't make this stuff up.
No, this is too absurd. I sometimes wish I was a political cartoonist.
You
wouldn't have to write anything. You just draw.
No.
What a trip.
Let's not deal with an issue that's important. Let's go expose girls to boys that are so screwed up that they want to become girls. Just. Well, today also I don't know. I guess about as frustrated as I could be with our country, with where we have gone as a nation.
Well, when we talked maybe 5 years ago, and we were talking along these lines of what was going to happen, I could foresee escalation in military and all this stupidness, war and everything. It was hard for me to fathom that all these people would go so brain dead in such mass craziness.
Yeah,
and we're here. I mean,
mass insanity.
We've been talking about bad drivers and things. I was driving home the other day, and I hadn't noticed it as much. Smaller town, of course, under 100,000. But these people are weaving back and forth in front of me, all texting away, and driving back and forth from line to line to line. And I'm going, I got to get away from this person. So I finally managed to get away from this person, and I got right behind another one doing the same thing.
Yeah.
On a 50 mile an hour highway.
Right. Yeah, it has nothing to do with bad driving. It has everything to do with an inability to be observant and to respond appropriately, to process information, ability to think. And the errors in judgment that people make while driving is so indicative of what's happened in America, where we have dumbed down generation after generation to the point that no one can think. Just no one can exercise good judgment, and it's a comedy of stupidity out there. I received a phone call yesterday from a good friend that was telling me that he's dating a woman that is came to him and said, what he needs to do is understand that if he's that by listening to this Yahowah crap, that he's really screwed up his life, and that what he needs is to listen to one of Yahweh's, or one of God's, the Lord's prophets, and to learn to speak in tongues, and then he'll be, everything will be okay. And if he was, speaking in tongues and listening to one of God's prophets, then he would be, every one of his relationships would be sound. He'd be much richer than he is in all these human rewards, which is what, of course, the Pentecostals are telling their flock, so that you dig into your pocket and give deeply. The more you give to God, the more you're going to get back, is their mantra. And so I shared with him something that happened here yesterday. It was on the news. I live in Butler County, and two homes, but the home I spend most time in right now is in Butler County, Ohio. And yesterday in Butler County, Ohio, in 1 hour, there were 7 people who went into a hospital emergency room with an overdose of heroin. And in one day, in this one little quiet county with a church on every corner, mega church on every corner, the kind of probably the ground center for Roman Catholicism in the nation. The only place that could rival it might be Boston. Here in Cincinnati, Ohio, right in the heart of America, you had 14 overdoses that required immediate medical care for heroin. And you say, okay, so here's the most Christian of communities. Mm-hmm. Mega churches, by mega churches, we're talking about entire blocks, these mega churches. Mm-hmm. And the Roman Catholic presence here is so overwhelming that they dominate academia and the skyline. And yet it is the single most pervasive place for heroin abuse.
So why do these people want to keep bending their brain if that's
that's my view. It's a
wonderful thing. Yeah.
It's such a wonderful thing. And why in this community they never said no to any academic levy that has the schools here are like palaces. Mm-hmm. So why, since they have civic centers that would rival most well-endowed colleges, and schools and there's a early childhood center for this little town that I'm next to that is, it must be, I would say, 300,000 square feet.
Wow.
It's gorgeous. It's just gorgeous. Yeah. You say, spending this kind of money, and what you're doing is you're generating people whose lives are so miserable. They're overdosing and using heroin. Welcome back to Observations. Kirk, Scott, I've got a question for you. Are you familiar with the story? It's right at the beginning of the book of Acts. Most of Acts is trash because Luke was Paul's attaché. and so it chronicles the life of the greatest adversary to the truth the world has ever known. But the beginning of it, the first 6 chapters actually deal mostly with the original disciples, the disciples that Yahowah himself picked and trained, and it begins by telling the story of Shavua, although because this is a Greek text, not in Hebrew, it's not called Shavua, it's called Pentecost. And we spoke, about this Pentecostal woman saying, the answer is to speak in tongues, which in Pentecostal circles they jibber jabber to one another, and nobody has any clue what anybody's saying, and they claim that it's the tongue of angels. When the set apart Spirit enabled those who had been the beneficiaries of Pesach, Matzah, and Bikurim, and who are now celebrating Shavua, when the set-apart Spirit enabled them to speak in tongues, was there a specific delineation of what tongues they were speaking?
Well, they spoke in Hebrew. They were understood by whoever was listening.
Well, they would have, the language that they spoke was Hebrew, and so the set-apart Spirit would be speaking to them in Hebrew, but and the early part of Acts, as they're talking about the set-apart Spirit on Shavua, there's a list of some 20 countries. And it says that you will be empowered now to speak the languages of, the Romans, the Greeks, the Egyptians, the Arabians, it goes on and on and on, the Phoenicians, and it goes on and on through the list of neighboring countries. And it says you'll be able to speak their language. Is that... Therefore, if you were speaking in tongues inspired by the set-apart Spirit, you would be equipped to speak Greek to a person living in Greece. You'd be equipped to speak Arabic to a person living in Arabia. You'd be equipped to Coptic. Yet that is what you would be empowered to speak. Has nothing to do with a tongue of angels or of speaking gibberish.
But the tongue of angels, if there was such a thing that they were doing, there'd have to be an interpreter there to interpret what you said.
Yeah. Now the fact is that as it relates to the language of heaven, there's only one language in heaven.
Hebrew.
Hebrew. That's it. And in Hebrew, in heaven there really isn't a tongue. In fact, Yahowah makes this point twice. I always wondered why it was spoken of the suffering servant that he never opened his mouth. It says that twice in Yeshaya 53, and you're saying, wait a minute, he sure as heck opened his mouth during Pesach because he talked to his disciples about how to celebrate Pesach going forward and what his role was going to be in Pesach. So he certainly talked to them about Passover, and then when he was arrested, he responded to those arresting him. And then when he was put on the mock trial by the Sanhedrin, he answered their questions, although making fools of those asking the questions, mocking them. And when he was interviewed by Pontius Pilate, he responded to him. And when he was put on the upright pole, he even quoted Psalm 22. So it's for darn sure that he spoke. He opened his mouth. It says, but he did not open his mouth. I've always wondered, why does it say that? Because he opened his mouth. Because there's a transition there, speaking of what happened in Sheol. And then I said, wait a minute, but in Sheol, we have a word's eye depiction of what occurred there, and even what went through Yahowah's mind as he was enduring it is presented in Psalm 22 and Psalm 88. And then I thought, in Bikurim too, we have him speaking to his mother and the women that came, and then to the fellows on the road to Emmaus, and then later to the disciples in the open room. And then it just dawned on me. He didn't open his mouth. He didn't have a mouth. He didn't have a body, Sheol.
No.
And the mouth that he had spoken Yahowah's testimony to the previous 3 years, it was incinerated in the evening of Pesach.
You're right.
Didn't have a mouth. It didn't say he didn't speak. It didn't say lo dabar. It didn't say lo amar. It said he didn't open his mouth. Didn't have a mouth. Trying to constantly reinforce that the body no longer existed, and all we were dealing with now is his soul, first separated from the set-apart spirit and then reunited with the set-apart spirit. Now, you really got to look at the words.
Observation, no pun intended.
Yeah, I've really struggled with it, and finally just, that is in fact the answer. But it dawned on me just to share that because of the fact that we're talking about tongues. In the spiritual realm, we will have no tongue. We will communicate without having to, without passing air through our throats and past our larynx and voice box, and by manipulating our tongue and lips to create sounds, we will communicate, and we will communicate in Hebrew. Now, the reason it's important to communicate in words, have you ever thought about yourself thinking? I mean, you think a lot, but you ever think about, wait a minute, I'm thinking now. How is it that I'm thinking? You ever contemplated the process of thinking?
I actually have.
Okay. And what is the common denominator about thinking?
Symbols. You think in terms of pictures and symbols and
words.
Words, yeah.
Words
are made of that,
Words.
Yeah, I agree with that. Even if I see something, I think the word in my head.
That's correct. We have a little granddaughter. She's 11 months old, and my wife was reading online and was talking about the things that she's doing right now. And the most important thing is she wants to know the word that's associated with everything, whether that thing is a tangible or intangible thing. Whether it's eating or food. Whether it's cold or tomato. She wants the word associated with everything. Because the only way for her to observe what's happening around her and then process that information and respond in a thoughtful way is to be able to associate a word with
So let me tell you what Debar, because on the quote, on the translation in 120, the last word is Debar. And I wrote down the arrangement or placement of things and the idea for creating order.
Right.
That's exactly what we do as communication, obviously, oral words and speak.
Right. Yeah, you were you talked about thinking in symbols, and I just but words are symbols. Words are created with letters, and particularly in Hebrew, they're graphic symbols of things. Every word is a symbol of the thing that it represents.
Right.
And so, if you actually catch yourself thinking, you will find that you reason with words. Now, you can dream in symbols and not even move into the words. But when you're thinking, it's always in words.
Yeah. All right.
And so that's why getting the words right is so important. Understanding, with symbols is so important. Now I want to return to Yahowah before we get to 20 here at or just to pick up where we had left off, 115. Yahowah 115, and we shared this in our last point. It says, "And with the spreading out of the palms of your hands, I will hide my eyes from you. Also, because you choose to make many long and grandiose prayers, rabbinic prayers, if you will, it's from Rabbah, and worthless and abhorrent pleas and repulsive petitions, I will not be listening. Your hands are full of the shedding of blood, and your fingers are full of iniquity." These open hands, that's symbolic of people thinking they're giving God something.
Right.
Put something in the collection plate. Give God something. God's not interested in us giving him anything unless it's our ear to listen to him, our eyes to see what he has communicated to us, our hearts to act in a judgmental way to process it so that we can integrate it into our lives. He is interested in us committing to be part of his family. But other than that, we don't have anything that he is interested in.
No.
Can't use money in heaven.
No.
And wouldn't have any interest.
Our collective brain trust ain't going to impress him.
No. He has no shortage of gold or silver. No shortage of energy. Nothing that we would value on Earth. Like he said when they held the silver coin, whose image is on it. Caesar's. We'll give to Caesar what is Caesar's. Yeah, I don't have have no interest in money. Go away. So he's saying, first of all, I have, here's your offering all of this stuff. And I'm saying, I'm going to hide my eyes from you. I don't even want to look at your crap. And by the way, you think that speaking derogatorily or using harsh terms to say, I don't want to look at your crap. God uses much more
worse
graphic terms than that.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what he's saying. I don't want to look at your crap. But then these prayers, Paul said, pray without ceasing. That's not God's position at all.
Yep.
Now, he'd be happy for you to listen without ceasing. And he'd be happy for you to be observant without ceasing. But let me just share something that those people who get down on their knees and pray don't seem to understand. There's nothing you can tell God that he doesn't know. And he is completely uninterested in whether or not you want a base hit, score a touchdown, or to get a date with a pretty girl. He doesn't care. Has no interest whatsoever in those things. He is not going to inspire the leaders of your country. He's not going to help you win a battle. No interest. In fact, he's repulsed by those things. But he has a lot that he can tell us. He's worth listening to. I used to be a prayer, and now I'm a listener.
Mm-hmm.
I told you the other day, I'm not much of a conversationalist when it comes to God. I'm a really good listener. And the best I typically do is, wow, that's impressive. Thanks for sharing that. That's a good one. I wonder why I didn't see that one before.
You're really good.
You are really good. Yeah, you're really good. Yeah, that's impressive. Okay, so I say that a lot, but that's about as far as it goes. I used to somewhere along this process, I used to say to him, I don't get this. Could you help me understand it? And I said, wait a minute. You don't think that he doesn't know that I don't get it? And don't you think he wants to help me to understand it? Why am I? Shut up and listen. Open your eyes and shut your mouth, and it might just think about it. It's like I started writing. I told you, I was Yahowah 53. First time I really translated it, or at least I've become much more comfortable with Hebrew. And they're saying translate it, and I did the whole thing. I was writing my commentary on it, and I said, okay, I'm going to be honest with you all here. I don't get why God said don't open your mouth. He won't open his mouth because here's when he opened his mouth. And so I was just, I began it by having that quick thought. God, I'm going to admit that I don't know here, and maybe somebody will read this and explain it to me because I don't get it, and I've thought about it in the past. And as I was writing all of this down, and I just started writing all of it down, I said, oh. So that's the reason. Okay. You just had to gather your thoughts. But God's saying, no, listen, your prayers are repulsive. Your petitions. What is a petition? That is when you're asking God for something.
Do something for me.
Yeah. What did Yosha say? He was talking about the Sermon on the Mount. With the instructions of the Mount.
You know exactly.
Yeah, he began it. I mean, it was right there at the beginning of it. He said, this ridiculousness of you, asking God for things. Don't you think he knows what you need? He doesn't say he knows what you want, because what you want is not what you need.
No.
Now, in my case, what I want is what I need, but since I already have it, I don't need it, and I want the benefits of the covenant. But since I already have them, I know there's no reason to ask for them. But and then he goes on to say,
I mean, you're not asking about your will for your life anymore?
yeah, and no, I know what his will for my life is. To live forever with him in his home and have a really good time exploring, and between now and then, do the best that I can to expose and condemn religion and politics and patriotism and all the manner of lies while simultaneously sharing his testimony. That's his will for my life, and to have as good a time and as productive a time and enjoyable a time doing that as possible. That is his will for my life. But guess what? That's his will for Scott's life too. Mm-hmm. I know Scott would prefer it to be the next LeBron James, but no, that's his will.
It'll be better. It will eventually be better.
No, I don't think.
Actually, I've never wanted to be LeBron.
Okay.
I feel he gets a raw deal. He's probably the greatest basketball player I've ever seen, and everybody looks at him and they nitpick him. Yeah. I feel like that would be horrible. I don't think I'd deal very well with that.
Yeah. The most one of the most abhorrent personalities was so marvelously marketed by Nike that he's compared to Jordan, and with Jordan, it's kind of like the caricature of the Christian Jesus. There's so little relevance between the mythical Jordan that he's compared to and the actual man. I met Jordan one time. My son and I were playing golf at it's kind of a really difficult golf course to get to. It's Rancho San Marcos. Kind of fun. It's up there in the foothills above, way above Santa Barbara, and he was out there playing too, and he's just rude, egotistical, self-absorbed.
Think about this. LeBron, they play a game. It is a child's game. It's a game. Yeah. It's a game that people find enjoyment from, and for kids from 3 or 4 years old to 60-year-old, they find enjoyment in the game. Mm-hmm. Games are supposed to be fun. Mm-hmm. And LeBron, because of Jordan and how he had that sour demeanor, and he was seen as, some highly competitive guy, because LeBron's out there laughing and having fun with his teammates.
Right.
Somehow that diminishes what he does in a game.
Yes, it wasn't that Jordan was mean because he was competitive. He was mean because he was just mean. Just his nature.
Because it could be. Nobody called him on it. So I'm actually glad I'm not. That's not my my destiny wasn't to be or whatever. It wasn't to be a
well, so good star. Because that would be a worthless prayer, an abhorrent play, and a repulsive petition.
Very much so.
Yeah, God says, I ain't listening. So all of these prayers, parents sit down and they want to pray with their children as they put them to bed, or they hold hands and pray at a meal, which almost makes me want to puke, or they bob their heads at the Western Wall, and the rabbinical Jews with the little black hats and their curly cues bow down and read or by memorization a rabbinical prayer, or the Muslims mooning God and putting their nose in the dirt 5 times a day. That's it. I'm not listening. I'm not looking, and I'm not listening. So, as far as I'm concerned, you are full of it. Moving on, he then said, choose to wash yourselves, because you are covered in crap. Choose to wash yourself, desiring to be clean, free of foreign sediment and impure substances, upright and acquitted. Scott, even you are dirty, and so are you, Kirk, and as am I. But the difference is, because we have embraced the terms and conditions of the covenant, and we have approached the set-apart spirit, when Yahowah invited us to do so, for example, on matzah, we appear perfect in God's eyes. Dode was a pretty scummy dude, but God said he was righteous, right, perfect. And that is because his set-apart spirit, Ruach Kodesh, has washed us and then enlightened us, and where there is light, there is no darkness. So we appear perfect, and that's all that matters. In fact, we actually are perfect, because no matter how scummy we may think we are, God has perfected us and cleansed us and filled us with light so that there is no impropriety associated with us.
I've always kind of looked at it like kind of like a growing up thing. If your kid makes mistakes and he may tell him to do something and he might not listen to you, he might do it. It doesn't change how you feel about that kid as long as when he grows up, he's the person that you want him to be. I assume this is just like a growing up phase. Eventually I'll be the thing that he wants me to be.
Right. Yeah, that's right.
Well, even with Dode, he was already the thing he wanted him to be. He told you what he wanted you to do, and that's exactly what Dode did, to the point that he wrote all those songs.
Yeah, exactly.
And so, despite what else he was doing, Yahowah couldn't see past that because he didn't want to see past that. That was the goal.
That was
he can take care of the other stuff. The other stuff will wash away anyway.
There's a reason that Hebrew only has two conjugations, only two tenses, if you will, the imperfect and the perfect. The whole purpose of the Hebrew language and the Torah that it communicates is to perfect the imperfect. That's the whole reason the Torah exists. So it's God says you should choose to wash yourself. Well, you might say, wait a minute, I can't wash myself. What's water going to do? Well, you absolutely can. You can choose to accept the terms and conditions of the covenant, receive the benefits, or reject them.
Right.
Choice is yours. Desiring to be clean, free of foreign sediment, impure substances, and therefore upright and acquitted. This is wazaka. It's interesting that this foreign sediment.
Yeah, I like that.
Foreign to what? Foreign to Yahowah? Foreign to Israel?
Point of view, yeah.
Right. Babylonian? Egyptian?
Babylonian, yes, Christian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, Babylonian Christian.
Rabbinical Judaism, all of it.
All of it. That's the foreign sediment. Of your own free will, reject and turn away from your evil and counterproductive practices and endeavors.
Gotcha.
It's reinforcing the same thing so that you don't miss it. So of your own free will, reject, turn away from your evil and counterproductive. Ra'ah atem. Your improper, invalid, hindering, displeasing, unethical, corrupting, ugly, malevolent, perverted, bad, and sad, inferior, and wicked, errant practices, endeavors. Malalo, deeds and undertakings, acts and actions, attendance and services, from halal, to wantonly and ruthlessly take advantage of others by playing them for fools.
Yes, and that's, I looked all those up, and that's exactly what it says. Religious services, playing people for fools.
Yes.
Deeds, works, and your evil dealings. I mean,
correct.
Boy. No,
and it's
no way you can mistranslate that.
Evil and counterproductive. It's so many people are saying that, he's a really religious person. He's a person of faith, person of God. I'm going to tell you that religion is wholly and completely counterproductive. It's impure. It's evil, wicked, wrong, and God despises it. And if you're associated with it, then you look like, I'll use the word again, crap.
Mm-hmm.
That's just the way you are. And so God says, clean that crap, that garbage away from before my eyes, refraining from and ceasing to be content or to consent to being, in fact, I've lost the context here, but what he's saying is refrain from and ceasing to be content with being invalidated, unethical, improper, and inerrant. So, choose to wash yourself, desiring to be clean of this foreign sediment, this impure substances, and then of your own free will, reject and turn away from the evil and counterproductive practices, endeavors before my eyes. Refraining from
another walk away from religion and politics. I mean, reinforce that once again.
Right. Yeah. Refraining from and ceasing to consent to being invalidated, unethical, improper, inerrant, raw.
Yeah.
You know, Ra'ah, by the way, is also the Hebrew word that is so often translated neighbor and fellow citizens. You know, and I say, well, wait a minute. Primary meaning of the word is improper, invalid, unethical,
dysfunctional.
Right, malevolent, corrupting, perverted.
Yeah, how do you get that if it's bad, impaired, abnormal, wrong path?
Yeah.
View of man.
You know, we talked about heroin, and you know, I have this news feed that just came up. The city of East Liverpool in Ohio just took a picture of two parents, a man and a woman, with their children in the back seat. They're in a car, sort of on the side of the road, and mom and dad have just taken an injection of heroin. Shut up of heroin.
Their children,
Yeah, and they're both absolutely out of it, sitting in the car, and the kids are in the back seat. And you just go, wow. Just how in the world can you do that to yourself, much less your children? Well, God's answer instead is desire learning. Desire learning. Be receptive to being right, to being better, and to prosper. Seek the misthought. You know, in the midst of Isaiah 53, where Yahowah is talking about the sacrificial lamb and the inequity of us all, our revolt against God being placed upon him. Right in the midst of it, it has misthought. Explaining what he's doing. The misthought is the means to justly resolve disputes. Yeah, if God just said, I'm going to forgive you just because, well, I feel like it, then he would be something of a consequence. It's got to be fixed. Yeah. Right. He would be unjust. His word would be meaningless. There would be no effective standard. He would be capricious. And so God he literally cannot say, without being irresponsible, no longer dependable, he can't say, well, I'm going to forgive you just because you asked. Can't do it. And the misthought explains how he goes about remaining honorable, dependable, trustworthy, and just, and yet exonerate us. It's the just means to resolve disputes. And it's marvelous what he's done. He explains it in Yahowah 53, that I, in fact, paid the price. The suffering servant, with the manifestation of Yahweh, paid the price, went into Sheol on our behalf.
Can I interrupt just 1 second?
Yeah,
on this? Because yesterday I had a conversation with someone, and they asked me, once again, even though they know the answer, but they asked me why so few people gravitate to Yahowah versus everything else, why there's so few numbers of us. And I explained as best I could off the top of my head. And then when I translated this again last night, looking up, just kind of briefing myself for the show, this passage has the 5 reasons, and if you think of these as characteristics of someone,
please.
Desire to learn.
Right.
Most people don't have that. They truly don't. They've got to be said, give me the answer, give me the short version, let me get on with my life.
Yeah. How many times have I said that to people who've written me and said, you've got 10,000 pages here. Why don't you cut to the chase? What is it I need to do?
Yeah.
What are you trying to say?
Give me a little pamphlet that Billy Graham gives me.
Yeah, and I'm saying that, well, God didn't do it that way. He did not communicate a shortened version of it, because if you don't have a desire to learn, he does not want you to be part of his family, because he doesn't want to spend eternity with you.
With the rest of
because what are you going to do? And eternity is a really long time. If you don't have a desire to learn,
we have to put up with you too.
Right. That's right. If you don't have a desire to learn, you don't share an interest that is central to God's reason for creating the universe. And so, but right there.
Number 2, this next one comes up, and I don't want to jump too far ahead, but just these words. Seek. To seek something, you have to want to go seek something, and most people are not seekers.
Yeah.
Dig it out. You're probably the epitome of the best figure out. You're the best gold miner I've ever seen. And you'll dig it out to the last little thing.
Right. Seeking is more than, you can want to know, want to desire learning, but seeking is a commitment, a physical commitment to engage. It's a voyage. I would call it a voyage of discovery.
Sure. That's good.
You're taking an exploration into a realm comprised of words. And if you are excited about going on those voyages of discovery, and I don't really think that there's going to be a tremendous difference between the investigations, Kirk, that you and I do of Yahowah's testimony and an exploration of a solar system in a faraway galaxy. It's the same mindset.
I think so.
The same experience. But you better well want to seek. Seeking is this process that is I think it's the thrill. It's the fun of it.
Mm-hmm.
I went on a photographic safari. We didn't kill anything. I didn't come back with a head that I could mount on the wall. Didn't take a gun with me. Took a camera. I sought out the interesting animals of creation, and I sought to capture their image on film. See?
Well, I took my paintbrush on my last trip. I mean, to paint the rocks in sky, land, and ocean.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Seek. All right, so that's 2.
Okay, then it says live an upright life, electing to walk. Well, walking, I associate that immediately with the Mikras.
Yeah.
So you're walking with Yah. You have to walk to be someone who wants to walk with Him and talk with Him.
Yeah, walking is more than just. Walking is more than just the mikra, of course, and it's more than just walking away from your country.
Is wanting to be part of that,
but if you're walking, it says a lot of things. That's why halak is used in so many important places in the Torah.
Mm-hmm.
If you're walking, you're on your feet, aren't you? You're not bowed down on your knees.
You're not
right?
kneeling.
And if you're walking, you're engaged, aren't you?
Absolutely.
You're going somewhere.
Exactly.
Yep. So with walking, you're on your feet. That means you're shoulder to shoulder, eye to eye with whoever you're walking with. You are you're engaged, so you're not a bump on a log, and you're going somewhere.
Yeah.
And by the way, he didn't say there's a Hebrew word for run. He doesn't say run.
No, you ain't got to be the fastest fleet.
No. In fact, it's counterproductive. Like counterproductive to run. I've been working on what now is chapters 10 and 11, and actually it was 9, 10, 11. 9 was just one chapter, and it opened, and I went on this voyage of discovery. And, I haven't run a lick. I've just walked from word to word. Walking is a very pleasurable pace where you can observe what's happening all around you. What do they say about golf? It's a good walk ruined?
It's a good walk spoiled.
Yeah. But walking is an essential, being upright, being engaged, going somewhere. So that's the third, walk.
Yeah.
Okay?
Well, there's a fourth thing, characteristic he's looking for.
Mm-hmm.
If you're going to be serving as a guide, then you have to be judgmental.
Yeah, Shabbat.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's why when this comment that it's Greek krino, which was somehow translated from a Hebrew word and then into English, judge not. Yeah. And of course, the Greek word means separate.
Yeah.
But he didn't speak Greek, so why make a big deal out of it? But the fact is that God is constantly asking us to be judgmental. In fact, every reference to the heart, the leb in Hebrew, is being judgmental. The liver was the seat of emotions. The heart was the seat of judgment. And if you're not judgmental, you can't be just. You can't be moral. You can't be right. Your free will is for naught. Being judgmental is the essence of what it means to live a life that's worthwhile. And it's what is the principal enemy of being judgmental in today's world?
The mantra.
Yeah, the political correct mantra, social secular, multiculturalism. Judge not. Be tolerant. Be mutually accepting.
All things are equal.
Yeah.
How did all things become equal? And what generation was that about till now?
Yeah, that's exactly right. That all things are acceptable.
Yeah.
Multicultural. Let's be mutually accepting, as opposed to let's all be judgmental.
Mm-hmm.
That's why I constantly say the problem isn't that we hate; it's that we don't know what to hate.
Well, that's characteristic number 5, as it turns out, I think.
Okay.
And you get to your next one, we're quarrel with.
Yeah.
You know, with these people, these dumbed down. I love your translation. I found it all too.
Well, I tell you what, that is
dumbed down, forsaken church, basically.
Yeah. In fact, I think that might be a good topic for this evening. This rib call amana, and I have my view of this because if you read most English Bibles, they want you to help out the widow,
and that's absurd.
But that's not
absurd to think that.
But rib means to quarrel with, to contend with, to bring a legal argument against, to show hostility to, and so you can't get support out of rib. I mean, it might be support a good argument.
No, it's strive, contend, debate. What do you want?
Right.
Oh, those no.
And the fact that, and then almana, which is its rib, almana. And so what is almana? It's to be silent, to be silenced, to be unable to speak.
Dumb and speechless, right?
Yeah. Those who are now bound to a religion.
Yeah. It's also a desolate house.
Right. A person who is living in a state of abandonment. Right, so ain't talking about widows. Because he most certainly doesn't want you to quarrel with the widow.
Yeah.
So almana, it's the congregation of the bound, the dumb, the forsaken. So I mean, that was as big a stretch as I'm ever likely to go on a translation. Mm-hmm. And you were able to verify independently.
Every one of them.
Yeah.
And I don't have the resources you have, and I even use some that you don't use, but that are Christian-oriented, but you dig them up, and there it is, right in front of their faces.
Right, and you found that
use all of them. They go, I say, well, why can't you find it? You wrote the darn thing. You put the dictionary together, and you can't even read it?
Right. Almana is based on alman, which means it's the bereaved, the worshiping congregation, the silenced and dumb, those who are bound. And, of course, bound is the basis of religion. It's from the Latin.
Yeah, it's a word.
Right, join and bound.
Yeah. So it's just...
So those are the 5.
Yeah. I'd probably rather...
Desire learning, seek, therefore, be an explorer, be willing to walk upright, be judgmental, and to quarrel.
So
with
when that
those
person asks you... I'm sorry, go ahead.
Go ahead. No, I'm finished.
I was just going to say, when that person asks you why there's so few, well, here's 5 characteristics that you ain't going to find in the average person. It doesn't make us, it does, I guess it does. It makes us special in God's eyes because that's what he's looking for. But how many people are looking for what we just said, or what he just said in Isaiah?
Yes, there are a lot of places where I am certain that confident that God has told us that he wants us to be like him and know what to hate, and then when we know what to hate, to show righteous indignation.
Right.
But this is a great spot where he's saying, I want you to quarrel with, to expose, to condemn, to contend with religion.
Yeah.
It's important that you do that.
Well, this is all kind of running on sentences as well. And he's been the whole topic in the last 2 verses was about religious, rabbinical, or religious and prayer and all that stuff. So
yeah, in fact, being judgmental
change into another subject all of a sudden. That's exactly what he's talking about. He's saying this is how you deal with it.
Yeah, being judgmental on behalf of the fatherless child is what the fatherless child needs.
Yeah.
Because who's the fatherless child? The child without.
Oh, it's the one without Yahowah.
Yeah, exactly. And if you're not judgmental regarding them, then how are you going to help them? If you tell them, listen, all religions lead to God, and you're not judgmental, you're mutually accepting and accommodating, you might as well just shoot them.
Yeah.
No, we're not saying don't be violent, but
no,
you're in effect.
But I mean, you have done nothing but help them along their path to death.
That is correct. That is correct.